The Galactic Union's recruitment center hummed with activity, its halls alive with the vibrant chaos of countless alien species going about their business. Xander Marwick stood amidst the bustle, feeling distinctly out of place. He adjusted his jacket, a futile attempt at composure while ignoring the curious glances from a tentacled being nearby. Humans were still a relatively rare sight in this part of the galaxy, and Xander knew he stuck out like a sore thumb. The recruiter, a tall, spindly Cuvan with translucent, glittering skin, leaned over its terminal. "Mr. Marwick," it said in a melodic, chirping voice, "your DNA scan has returned. Unusual results. Your profile has been flagged as an unknown hybrid." Xander blinked. Unknown hybrid? That's got to be a mistake. The Kievan's gaze remained fixed on its screen. "There are no errors in our system. Your genome contains anomalies inconsistent with standard human parameters. This warrants further investigation." Xander leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Listen, I'm just a guy from Earth. I don't know what this hybrid thing is about, but I'm as human as anyone else." The Kievan's shimmering head tilted, and its voice took on a tone that almost sounded amused. "Human genomes are well documented. Yours does not conform entirely. You will need to undergo additional analysis in our secondary assessment center." Xander sighed, glancing around at the bustling facility. The last thing he wanted was to become the center of galactic curiosity. "Fine," he muttered. "Let's get this over with." The Kievan escorted him down a series of winding corridors into a sterile, brightly lit chamber. A hovering orb buzzed in and began scanning him from head to toe, its faint hum the only sound in the room. "Please remain still," the orb intoned in a monotone voice. As the minutes stretched on, Xander's mind raced. Unknown hybrid? Anomalies? The idea was absurd. His parents, Ruth and Owen Marwick, were as ordinary as they came. His dad ran a hardware store, and his mom was a retired schoolteacher. The strangest thing about his childhood had been the time he got caught trying to build a treehouse using stolen lumber. Nothing in his life pointed to anything alien. The orb's hum stopped abruptly, and it floated back to a docking station. A mechanical voice spoke. "Analysis complete. Genetic markers confirm the presence of sequences inconsistent with terrestrial origin." Xander raised an eyebrow. "What does that even mean?" The orb didn't answer. Instead, the door slid open to reveal a towering Ralakian, its cobalt blue skin gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Known for their no-nonsense demeanor, Ralakians were the Union's enforcers, and this one looked every bit the part. Xander Marwick, the Ralakian, said, its deep voice carrying authority. "I am Commander Lauren. You are to be transported to the Union's Central Genetics Division for further investigation." "Investigation," Xander repeated, his frustration boiling over. "You're acting like I committed a crime. I came here to apply for recruitment, not to become some kind of science experiment." Lauren's expression didn't waver. "Your cooperation is not optional." Xander opened his mouth to argue, but one look at the Ralekian's stern gaze told him it was pointless. With a resigned sigh, he followed Lauren through another maze of corridors until they reached a transport pod. The sleek vessel whisked them away to the Central Genetics Division, a gleaming tower that loomed over the cityscape. Inside, Xander was subjected to more scans, questions, and tests than he thought possible. He sat on a cold bench, arms crossed, as a team of scientists, each representing a different species, scrutinized him like a particularly puzzling specimen. "Let me get this straight," Xander said, breaking the silence. "You think I'm part alien? That's ridiculous. I grew up on Earth. My parents are humans, normal, boring humans." A Selnan scientist with luminous green eyes responded, her tone clinical. "Your genome contains non-terrestrial sequences. This is an empirical fact, not speculation." Xander shook his head. "That's impossible. My family's been on Earth for generations." Laren, who had been standing silently nearby, finally spoke. "It is rare, but not unheard of, for individuals to carry latent genetic material from non-terrestrial sources. The Union has documented cases of ancestral interbreeding between humans and other species." "That doesn't make it less insane," Xander muttered. "I'd know if my family had some alien ancestry." The Selnan's gaze didn't waver. "Perhaps your parents are unaware. Genetic anomalies often skip generations or remain dormant." Xander's frustration reached its peak. So what now? Are you going to lock me up in a lab forever? Lauren's expression softened slightly. We are not your enemy, Xander Marwick. But the origin of your hybrid status must be determined. It is a matter of security and understanding. Understanding, Xander scoffed. You think I'm some kind of threat? No, Lauren said firmly. But anomalies, especially those of unknown origin, must be accounted for. Xander ran a hand through his hair, his mind spinning. If what they said was true, then his entire life had been built on a lie, or at least a massive unknown. He needed answers, and there was only one place he could get them. I need to talk to my parents, he said finally. If anyone knows what's going on, it's them. Lauren nodded. We can arrange for a secure communication link. Thanks, Xander muttered, though he didn't feel particularly grateful. Later that evening, Xander sat in a quiet room with a holographic communicator. His parents' familiar faces flickered into view, their expressions immediately turning to concern. Xander, Ruth exclaimed. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Owen leaned closer, his brow furrowed. Son, are you in some kind of trouble? Xander hesitated, then took a deep breath. I'm not in trouble, but I might be in over my head. I got flagged during a DNA test here. They're saying I'm not fully human. Ruth's hand flew to her mouth. Not human? What are you talking about? They're calling me an unknown hybrid, Xander explained. They think I have alien DNA. Owen's jaw dropped. That's ridiculous. You're our son. We'd know if there was anything strange about you. Are you sure? Xander pressed. I mean, really sure. Did anything weird ever happen before I was born? Ruth and Owen exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Ruth spoke. Well, there was that one time. It was years ago, before you were born. We were driving back from your grandparents' house, and we saw these lights in the sky. We pulled over to watch, and the next thing we knew, 3 hours had passed. Xander leaned forward. 3 hours? You don't remember what happened? No, Owen said, his voice quieter than usual. We figured it was just some kind of shared dream or hallucination. We didn't think much of it. Xander stared at the screen, his mind reeling. And then I came along. It's not like that, Ruth protested. You're our son. That's all that matters. Xander's voice softened. I know, Mom, but if there's even a chance that something happened that night, it could explain all of this. Owen nodded reluctantly. We'll do whatever we can to help, son. But I'm telling you, we're as human as they come. Xander managed a weak smile. Thanks, Dad. I'll figure this out. As the call ended, Xander felt a mix of dread and determination. Whatever the truth was, he was going to get to the bottom of it, even if it meant unraveling everything he thought he knew about himself. The Galactic Union Central Genetics Division was quieter the next morning, its usual hum of activity muted as Xander sat alone in a small observation room. His mind churned with questions, the conversation with his parents still fresh. The strange lights, the missing hours. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was enough to rattle him. The door slid open, and Commander Lauren entered, followed by the Selnan scientist Xander had met the day before. She introduced herself as Myril, her green eyes glowing faintly in the sterile lighting. We've reviewed your parents' account of the incident, Myril said without preamble. While inconclusive, it aligns with certain patterns the Union has documented. Xander frowned. Patterns? You've seen this kind of thing before. Myril nodded. Incidents of unexplained light phenomena and time anomalies are not uncommon on less monitored worlds like Earth. They often coincide with latent genetic markers of non-terrestrial origin appearing in subsequent generations. Xander's frustration boiled over. So what are you saying? That some alien species has been sneaking around Earth, adding their DNA to humans? It is not impossible, Myril replied, her tone calm. Many species have experimented with genetic integration as a means of fostering adaptation or resilience. It is also possible your lineage stems from a much older event, one lost to history. Xander leaned back in his chair, letting that sink in. He wasn't sure which was worse, the idea of being part of some long-forgotten experiment or the notion that his family tree had an extra branch that no one could see. Fine, he said after a moment. Let's say you're right. What now? You keep running tests until you figure out which alien played God with my ancestors. Laren spoke up, his deep voice cutting through the tension. This is not about you alone, Xander Marwick. If your anomaly is linked to broader events, understanding it could have implications for both Earth and the Union. Xander snorted. Great. Glad to be of service to the galaxy. Myril placed a tablet on the table. You have a choice. We can continue investigations here, or we can trace potential sources directly. Given your situation, the Council has approved exploratory measures, should you consent. Xander narrowed his eyes. Exploratory measures? What does that mean? It means, Myril said, we follow the evidence, starting with the possibility that Earth isn't as isolated as it seems. A day later, Xander found himself aboard a sleek Union vessel, the Stellar Horizon, heading for Earth. Myril and Laren accompanied him, along with a small team of researchers. The plan was to analyze the area where his parents had experienced their strange encounter, cross-referencing the site with Union records of alien activity. Xander stared out the observation window as Earth grew larger, its familiar blue and green surface tugging at his sense of home. For all its flaws, Earth was where he belonged. The idea that some unknown species had been meddling in its affairs felt both invasive and oddly fascinating. Is this normal for you guys? Xander asked Myril as she reviewed her data, flying across the galaxy to solve random DNA puzzles. Myril didn't look up. Unusual cases require unusual measures. Besides, this is far from random. Your genetic signature is remarkably stable for a hybrid anomaly. Stable, Xander repeated. Is that good or bad? It's intriguing, she replied, her glowing eyes meeting his. Most hybrids show genetic instability, often resulting in health complications or an inability to reproduce. You, on the other hand, exhibit none of those traits. Well, I'm glad I'm not falling apart, Xander muttered. But that doesn't explain why I'm a hybrid in the first place. That, Myril said, is what we're here to uncover. The landing site was a remote stretch of farmland where Xander's grandparents had lived decades ago. The house was long gone, replaced by overgrown fields and rusting farm equipment. Myril's team set up scanning equipment, their devices humming as they searched for residual energy signatures. Xander stood to the side, watching the operation with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Laren approached, his imposing frame casting a long shadow. You seem uneasy, Laren observed. Wouldn't you be? Xander shot back. This place is where my parents saw those lights last time, and apparently set the stage for me to be part alien. Laren nodded. It is understandable to feel conflicted. But answers often lie in the places we least expect. Before Xander could respond, one of the researchers called out. We found something. The group gathered around a holographic projection. A faint energy field shimmered in the display, concentrated in a specific area of the field. This residual signature matches technology used by a species known as the Vinari, Myril explained. They are an elusive race, known for their genetic experimentation and long-term observational studies. Vinari, Xander repeated. Are they still hanging around? Unlikely, Myril said. The signature is decades old, but it provides a lead. What kind of lead? Xander asked. Myril turned to him, her expression unreadable. The Vinari are known to leave encoded data at their sites. If we can access it, it might reveal their intentions and possibly your connection to them. Xander sighed. And how do we do that? Dig up the whole field. Not quite, Myril said. She held up a sleek device. This will interface with the energy signature directly. It may take time. Xander watched as the team got to work, his unease growing. The idea that answers about his identity might be buried in this forgotten field felt surreal. Still, he knew there was no turning back now. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the team's efforts bore fruit. The device Myril had set up projected a stream of alien text into the air. The symbols shifted and rearranged until they formed a coherent message in Galactic Common. It's a log, Myril said, scanning the data. The Vinari visited Earth to conduct long-term genetic studies. They identified humans as a promising species for integration due to their adaptability. Integration, Xander asked. What does that mean? selective introduction of their own genetic material into the human genome, Myril explained. They believed it would enhance human resilience without altering core traits. Xander's stomach turned. So I'm some kind of experiment. Your result, Myril corrected. One that may have surpassed their expectations. Laren placed a reassuring hand on Xander's shoulder. This discovery does not define you, Xander Marwick. You are who you choose to be. Xander nodded, though his thoughts swirled. The truth was starting to take shape, but it only raised more questions. Why had the Vanari stopped their experiments? And what did this mean for humanity as a whole? One thing was certain: Xander's journey was far from over. As the team packed up the equipment, Xander lingered by the holographic display of the Vinari log. The data shimmered faintly in the dimming light, casting an eerie glow over the field. His mind churned with what they'd uncovered: the Vinari's meddling, the genetic experiments, the long-abandoned mission. It was unsettling to think his existence might be part of some alien pet project. You look like you've seen a ghost, Myril said as she approached, her scanner in hand. More like I've found one, Xander muttered. How am I supposed to live with this? Knowing I'm part of some cosmic science experiment. Myril tilted her head, her green eyes reflecting the glow of the projection. You misunderstand, Xander. The Vinari didn't create you. They merely influenced the trajectory of a lineage. Your existence, your choices, your achievements, they're entirely your own. That's a nice way of putting it, Xander replied. But it doesn't make this any less weird. Myril gave him a faint smile. Truth often is. Laren's deep voice interrupted them. We're ready to depart. The data will be transmitted to the Union's archives for further analysis. Xander tore his gaze from the display. Great. More analysis. Just what I need. As they boarded the stellar horizon, Xander couldn't shake the feeling that the answers they'd found only scratched the surface. If the Vinari had seen humans as a species worth enhancing, why had they stopped? And what had their experiments truly achieved? Back aboard the ship, Myril analyzed the Vinari log further while Xander tried to distract himself in the observation lounge. The stars stretched into infinity beyond the reinforced glass, but the vastness of space offered little comfort. Laren joined him, his imposing frame settling into the seat beside Xander. For a moment, neither of them spoke. You carry a heavy burden, Laren said finally. No kidding, Xander replied. It's like finding out your family tree has an alien branch no one told you about. Laren's expression softened, a rare occurrence for a Ralekian, yet you handle it with resilience. That is a strength few possess. Xander snorted. Resilience, huh? More like denial. Before Laren could respond, Myril appeared in the doorway, her usual calm demeanor tinged with urgency. We've uncovered something new. Xander and Laren followed her to the lab, where the holographic display showed an intricate network of symbols. Myril pointed to a section highlighted in blue. This is a location marker, she explained. It references a Vinari repository, a facility where they stored data and artifacts related to their experiments. A repository, Xander asked, his curiosity piqued. Is it still active? That is uncertain, Myril admitted, but its coordinates are within range. If we proceed, we may uncover more about the Vinari's intentions and your genetic anomaly. Laren nodded. It is worth investigating. Prepare the ship for departure. Xander hesitated. Are we sure this is a good idea? The Vinari might not be too happy if we go poking around in their old stuff. The Vinari have been absent from known space for centuries, Myril said. The risk is minimal. Xander sighed. Fine. Let's go dig up more alien secrets. The repository's coordinates led them to a desolate moon orbiting a gas giant on the edge of Union territory. The surface was barren and lifeless, with jagged rocks stretching into an endless horizon. The only sign of activity was a faint energy signature emanating from beneath the surface. The team descended into a cavernous structure carved into the moon's crust. The walls were etched with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly, casting the tunnels in a dim, otherworldly light. As they moved deeper, the energy signature grew stronger, guiding them to a central chamber. In the chamber's center stood a massive obelisk, its surface covered in shimmering glyphs. Myril approached it cautiously, her scanner whirring. This is a Vinari archival node, she said, her voice tinged with awe. It's intact. Xander eyed the obelisk warily. What does it do? It stores data, Myril explained, and possibly more. If I can access it. She tapped a series of commands into her scanner. The obelisk responded, the glyphs rearranging themselves into flowing streams of light. A holographic interface emerged, displaying a wealth of information. This is incredible, Myril murmured. The Vinari documented their observations in great detail. Xander stepped closer. What does it say about their experiments? About me. Myril scanned the data, her glowing eyes narrowing in concentration. The Vinari viewed humanity as uniquely adaptable, capable of thriving in diverse environments and under extreme conditions. They sought to enhance these traits by introducing elements of their own genome into select lineages. Xander crossed his arms. Why? What were they trying to achieve? They believed humanity could serve as a bridge, Myril said. A species capable of fostering cooperation and resilience across the galaxy. A bridge, Xander echoed. Between what? Before Myril could answer, the obelisk emitted a deep hum. The glyphs shifted again, revealing a new message. This is unexpected, Myril said, her voice tense. The obelisk is transmitting a signal. A signal, Lauren asked, his tone sharp. To whom? To a dormant Vinari probe, Myril replied. It appears to be activating. Xander's stomach sank. Let me guess. The probe's coming here. Myril nodded. Its trajectory suggests it will arrive within hours. Lauren's expression hardened. Prepare for potential contact. We do not know the probe's intentions. Xander felt a pit of unease in his stomach. If the Vinari probe was anything like the rest of this mess, it was bound to raise more questions than answers. One thing was certain: the next few hours were going to be anything but boring. The tension aboard the Stellar Horizon was palpable as the Vinari probe's arrival grew imminent. Xander sat in the ship's operations room, the hum of consoles and the quiet murmur of the crew doing little to ease his nerves. The idea of coming face to face, or whatever passed for that, with remnants of the species responsible for his genetic anomaly was almost too much to process. Laren entered the room, his stern demeanor giving way to a rare, reassuring nod. The probe's approach vector has been confirmed. It will arrive within 30 minutes. And then what Xander asked, his voice edged with frustration. Do we wave hello and ask it for a family tree? Myril appeared, her calm presence steadying the room. The probe's purpose will likely be determined by its programming. It may be here to observe, retrieve data, or establish communication. Great, Xander muttered. So we wait to see if it wants to talk or disintegrate us. Laren's gaze sharpened. We will not allow harm to come to anyone aboard this vessel. The Union prioritizes the safety of all personnel. Good to know, Xander said. But that doesn't make this any less insane. When the probe arrived, it appeared as a sleek, obsidian sphere, its surface rippling with faint luminescence. The Stellar Horizon maintained a cautious distance, scanning the object for any signs of hostility. It drifted in orbit near the moon, silent and enigmatic. It's not emitting any threatening signals, Myril reported from her console. It appears to be waiting. Waiting for what Xander asked. For us to initiate contact, Myril said, turning to Lauren. Commander, with your authorization, I can attempt to interface with it. Lauren nodded. Proceed, but remain vigilant. Myril transmitted a series of standard Union communication protocols. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the probe pulsed with light, and a stream of holographic symbols projected into the ship's operations room. The symbols rapidly rearranged themselves into galactic common text. It's a message, Myril said, reading it aloud. Greetings. You have accessed a repository of Vinari legacy data. State your intentions. Laren exchanged a glance with Xander. What should we say? Xander hesitated, then stepped forward. We're here to understand. The repository mentioned a genetic integration project involving humanity. I want to know why. Myril translated Xander's words into the probe's language. The probe processed the input, its surface glowing faintly, before responding with another message. Humanity was chosen for its potential to adapt, unify, and survive. Our efforts sought to enhance these qualities for the benefit of the galaxy. Xander frowned. So you made us into some kind of intergalactic mediators. The probe's text shifted. We sought to ensure the survival of both our legacy and yours. Humanity's unique traits offered a means of bridging disparate species, fostering cooperation, and preserving harmony. Laren folded his arms. If this was your intention, why did you abandon the project? The probe's lights dimmed briefly. External conflict forced our retreat. Our species no longer exists in active capacity. A chill ran through the room. Xander leaned closer to the projection. You're saying the Venari are extinct? Correct, the probe replied. Our legacy survives through you. Xander stared at the message, the weight of the revelation sinking in. The beings responsible for altering his family's DNA were gone, their grand plans reduced to remnants encoded in his genetic makeup. So what now? Xander asked. What am I supposed to do with this information? The probe's next message was brief. Continue. Survive. Adapt. Unite. Xander couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. That's a lot of responsibility to put on one guy. You are not alone, Laren said, his voice steady. Your choices are your own, as are your actions. The Vinari's intentions do not define you. Myril added, their message is a reminder, not a mandate. What you do next is up to you. Xander took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of closure. The Vinari's motives were clear, their work long finished. Whatever lingering effects their experiments had, they didn't control his life. He was still Xander Marwick, a guy from Earth with a weird twist in his DNA. Back aboard the Stellar Horizon, the crew dismantled their equipment as the probe quietly powered down and drifted into the void. The mission was complete, and the team prepared to return to Union space. Xander sat with Myril and Laren in the ship's lounge, the tension of the past few days finally easing. So, that's it, as Xander said. I'm the product of some ancient alien experiment, and they're not even around to see how it turned out. You are more than their experiment, Myril said. You are proof of resilience, of survival. That is what matters. Laren nodded. The galaxy thrives on the strength of individuals like you. Whatever your origins, your future is yours to shape. Xander smiled faintly. Guess I'll just keep doing what I've been doing. Living my life, one weird alien encounter at a time. The ship's engines hummed as the Stellar Horizon began its journey back. Xander gazed out at the stars, feeling a strange mixture of relief and determination. The mystery of his heritage had been unraveled, but it didn't define him. It was a part of his story, not the whole. And for the first time since this wild journey began, Xander felt at peace.